I want to give you quick updates as to what is happening at the moment. Take a look at this map. Do you see this Kalkala military airport? Well, it came under attack. War in Syria just started. With Assad in power for a very long time, there was no major operation. Obviously, you can always claim that these airstrikes from Israel was routine even during the time of Bashar al-Assad. Let's talk about that more in details. I will explain in a second. Then we'll talk about IDF still losing soldiers, its personnel in Gaza. Believe it or not, after 1 year, more than actually 1 year of complete annihilation of the people of Gaza, pulverizing their buildings and infrastructures, IDF still is getting killed. We'll talk more on all of this, but before I move on, just to remind you guys, most of my viewers are not subscribed. If you happen to be one of them, consider subscribing. Actually, I want to start with this news first, where we have seen Al-Qassam brigades. They have described in a statement on operation that led to the killing of an Israeli officer in the vicinity of the University of the Al-Janaina neighborhood east of Rafah city. Israeli forces continued to carry out massacres across Gaza with intense artillery shelling reported on the Nusayrat refugee camp in the central area of the Strip. I actually want to share more news about Israeli violation of the ceasefire agreement this time with Hezbollah. As we know that the ceasefire was, to me, looks like enforced or imposed on Israel by US and France. What do you mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is, looks like to me now, looking back at how they're reacting and how they are behaving, the Israeli and both Hezbollah, to me it looks like the ceasefire Israel never wanted. Netanyahu especially never wanted it. He doesn't need a ceasefire because he could easily continue airstrikes thanks to the bombs provided to him by United States. So for Israel, ceasefire, no ceasefire, doesn't really matter. The only reason why they would reach to a ceasefire agreement is because of the displacement of thousands of Zionists from Kiryat Shmona, that would be north of Israel. And that is the only reason why they would go and negotiate with Hezbollah. Other than that, no, they don't want to do it. Because again, they can just sit at home, use their warplanes, their aerial power, the force they have, and they can just decimate Lebanon, any infrastructure in those countries, whether Lebanon or Syria, as we have seen how they're bombing now Syria. This is absolute provocation. Nobody's asking Israel to do this, but they are. Because they live in a fake state, they always live in panic. They always live in panic. When you forcefully capture someone else's land, you rob them from their land, or you kick them out, or you steal from their land, you always panic because you think somebody's going to catch you. The police is just around the corner. This is the panic that you feel all the time being in somebody else's land. And this is why a lot of the time you see Israel will disproportionately attack anyone who will come to attack them. Now let's talk about the other one, the other news, which is going to be this one. So Israeli airstrikes target strategic airbase and Damascus outskirts. No, this time it is not just the Khalkhala airport, the military base, but also they have attacked residential areas in Damascus. Why they're doing it? It could be because they want to obviously destabilize the rebels. Israel do not want the rebels or anybody for that matter to run the country smoothly, because a stable Syria means bad news for the Zionist state. Let's actually discuss this a little bit more. So Israeli warplanes hit the Khala airbase in southern Syria just few hours after new regime forces entered Syria's capital Damascus. Now here is where things get interesting. I want to tell you. So Jawlani his first command was to his people, and it was about the government institutions. So he said, don't go inside of those buildings, don't take any or assume any responsibility, don't kick the government officials out, let the existing government, which is Assad government, work, let them supervise everything. Slowly we will take over. So his now main focus is what is happening in Damascus in Syria, about internal governance of the Syrian country, the country Syria. And now he's forgetting who is actually going to be coming after him, and that is IDF. They have already mobilized, and there is this heightened military activity. This is coming from the Zionist media sources, that in Golan Heights, Israel is seizing the safe zone, or the buffer zone, at the instruction of Netanyahu. They are now preempting these Syrian rebels and trying to get as much security and put a fence or barriers of some kind to protect Israel itself. A lot of people, they say, oh, this is part of the greater Israel plan. No, I told you guys, this greater Israel plan is just in their head. And as I have just mentioned to you, they have lost another soldier today in Gaza. This army on the ground, they're completely weak. They're the weakest military in the world when it comes to ground offensive. The reason they go after this Lebanese like Hezbollah groups, or now they will be going after the rebels in Syria, is because of the weapons and fighter jets that are being supplied by United States and UK and France and Germany. But when it comes to fight one-on-one, they're the weakest. There is absolute not going to be possible, therefore, for them to have a greater Israel. Nobody else in the whole world shared that ambition with Israel. That is another reason. Especially US, no. They don't want to spend money on their whims and desires. They want Israel to stop and be there as they are. The United States, in other words, they do not share this ambition with the Israeli officials. That, yeah, you want to have a greater Israel? Go for it. No, they will not do this because it is very expensive and it is impossible. And why it is impossible, you will know in the next few days. So multiple reports have surfaced of Israeli airstrikes targeting a strategic airbase in Syria and residential areas in Damascus in recent hours. So it is again happening very recently. Reuters cited security sources who said, quote, aircraft believed to be Israeli struck the Khalkhala airbase in southern Syria. I want to actually show you the map one more time so you have an idea. They have this military airbase, Syrian government, they had this, and now it is obviously under the control of the rebels. It is possible that Israel, they do not want the rebels to get hold of this military airport and have the warplanes or the fighter jets or the air power the Syrian government had, because in a war like this that we will see a lot of them, hopefully I don't see any war between Syria and Israel, because it's loss for everyone. War is never good. But would Israel keep it quiet? Of course not. So because they are fearing that this airport, this military airport that will be under, or it is already under the control of the rebels, they would have their hands on advanced weapons and technologies that are probably also left behind by Russia. And that could possess a real threat for the Zionist state of Israel. And therefore, they have obviously intelligence that this airport holds all those kind of secrets and technology and all of those things that could embolden or give these rebels extra power, extra mileage or horsepower, if you like, for their campaign in the future against Israel. Because the war or some kind of war or battle is inevitable between Syria and Israel, especially under these rebels. So they have this King Hussein Air Base, and they also have this Khalkhala military airport very, very close. It could be the other reason that the Zionist forces, they want to get rid of this particular military base, because as we know, Assad he has his chemical weapons stored in those airports, in those sensitive areas. So it is possible that Israel is panicking that if these chemical weapons they fall into the hands of these rebels, they might use it against us. So in order to destroy those chemical weapons, they're now conducting this operation, this air operation. Who knows why they did it, but we will be coming with new information very, very soon and tell you what is happening. Of course, there is no doubt about that. So this is what is being happening. So the agency reported aircraft believed to be Israeli struck Khalkhala Air Base in southern area in Israel. In addition, the agency reported, so the agency, they are pro, I don't know what kind of agency. It could be UN. I don't know if these are UN or Israeli agency or Syrian agency. We do not know. So the agency reported that suspected Israeli strikes, quote unquote, targeted the Mazzah neighborhood in Damascus, with media sources confirming 2 large explosions in the area. Now, Israeli army, they have bolstered their presence in Golan Heights as Syria destabilized. Now, the Golan Heights is very, very important for Israel. If it does suffer some kind of unrest, then Israel will be in big trouble. So this is where Golan Heights is, and this is the buffer zone, or the area that was separated by UN, I believe, Quenitra, and this is where the tanks, Israeli tanks, they are heading to. This area will be completely seized by IDF, and Golan Heights, as you can see, as Donald Trump gave it to them in 2019, March 21st, when United Nations, they declared this illegal for Israel to occupy Golan Heights, but then Donald Trump said, F you, UN, I'm going to give it to them. I mean, this is what is happening. And now the Golan Heights, it is now becoming problematic for Israel. Why? Because now they have to patrol this whole area. They're coming under attack through this area, especially through now the rebels will definitely target Golan Heights, and Israel is panicking. They don't want to deal with this particular area and to come under attack. It was guarded by UN. Also, it was guarded by the United Nations disengagement forces, and lately it was also guarded by Russia. And now it will be open if they leave, and it will be exposed by the rebels to attack Golan Heights, and they will probably try to take it back, because this is again not Israeli territory. This is illegal according to United Nations mandate. Obviously they don't care, but the rebels, they will be coming under attack through Golan Heights from Israel. So the rebel might preempt and try to take it from Israel. Obviously, I don't think it is going to be that easy. US will definitely intervene, but they will nevertheless try their best to take it from the Zionist forces. So in response to developments in Syria, the Israeli army announced that it increased its presence in the Golan Heights, deploying forces to key locations in the demilitarized zone. The move, as per Israeli army, is aimed at securing Israeli settlements in the area and protecting the safety of the Israeli settlers. Given concerns over potential military incursions, the settlers are very, very erratic. Means they are like mad dogs. The settlers, we all know how they behave, just like crazy mad dogs. They don't really abide by any law. Even when IDF or ITF, as I call them, Israeli terrorist forces, even when they come, tell them, hey guys, don't do this, don't do that, they don't care. For example, in West Bank, Jenin and other part of West Bank was given to the settlers. And Israeli government told these mad dogs, go and live there, don't bother. And then when ITF returned, because there was some disorderly events taking place and there was absolutely no law, became a lawless land, these settlers, they threatened the ITF forces and told them, go back. Who are you to tell us what to do? So these settlers, They're the ultimate lunatics. And this is why they live everywhere. Every part of Israel you see the settlers. Because these lunatics, all they care about is Israel, Israel, Israel. And because they don't care about law and order, they can live anywhere they want. In fact, they love to live in a place where they're not being governed by Israeli government itself. And so, in further details, an Israeli army spokesperson alleged that Tel Aviv is not intervening in the ongoing events in Syria. That is so true. These people, they know how to lie. They are interfering in Syrian affairs. Now they have struck this airport, military airport, Al-Khalkhala, and they're still saying, oh, we don't want to interfere. We have no business there. Remember what Donald Trump said? U.S. has no business in Syria. These are all lies. Do you think that they will just keep their mouth shut and let this rebel rule Syria smoothly and with a nice governance? No. Israel will never find peace, and they will never let anybody else find peace, and they will always ask U.S. to intervene. The Israeli army will continue to take necessary actions to preserve the demilitarized zone and protect the state and its people, the spokesman said. Meanwhile, Israeli media report indicated heightened military activity, including entry of Israeli forces into Khan Arnaba in the occupied Golan Heights. Moreover, the Zionist forces announced that the occupied Golan Heights at the border with Syria has now closed military zone. Meanwhile, Syrian forces suggested that Israel, quote-unquote, is constructing a buffer zone along its border with Syria. Additionally, Walla News reported that Israel is in direct communication with various groups in Syria. Okay, so they don't negotiate with terrorists, right? Yeah, they don't negotiate with Hamas, but other than that, they negotiate with Hezbollah, no problem, even though Hezbollah, in their eyes, is a terrorist organization. And they have no problem now negotiating or having some kind of communication with terrorists in Syria. Do you see the problem here? The problem is, if they think you are weak, even though you're terrorists, they will not obviously negotiate. That's a given. But if IDF, Israeli forces, see you as strong, then they will be like, yeah, even though you're terrorists, we are willing to negotiate. So you can never really trust these people. Why? You are in direct communication with various groups in Syria. Why? At the same time, on the same breath, you call them terrorists. It doesn't make any sense. Including the militant group. So Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is in direct contact with who? With Israel. Through intermediaries, obviously. The Israeli message, according to the report, urges these groups to stay away from the border area. Yeah, I don't know if you can waltz in and bark orders at people, especially now that Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, to an extent, I would say to a long extent, is being controlled and monitored and supervised by Erdogan himself. So how Erdogan will react to this kind of orders and instructions, quote unquote, coming from Israel to Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is something we'll find out. I do personally believe Erdogan will not like it, that Israel will threat Syrian, because if Syria is destable, then refugees will go to Turkey, and Turkey doesn't want that. Turkey wants peace, safety, and security in Syria for its own sake. So when Israel is trying to ruffle the feather of these rebels, some of them at least will take up arms against Israel, and the whole country in no time will be destabilized. And so Israel should really need to lower the rhetoric. They need to put down the rhetoric a little bit more so that they do not ruffle feathers of those rebels. Because these rebels, they're looking for a job. After the liberation of Syria, they have no work to do. What they do, they continue fighting if they have the opportunity. And so Israel really need to be careful how they're dealing with these rebels and this new, almost like a government in Syria. But would they behave? I don't think so. But I do want to know what you think of the whole situation. Do you think there will be something we will see very, very soon shocking or not? Let me know. I'll see you in the next video.